Okay, so we're recording. So no pressure now, Suze. We're recording.
I know.
We are live. So yeah, this is going to be Sue's story in 30 minutes or so. Suze, obviously, some people know you relatively well. Some people have seen your face before, but we obviously want to delve into your story. But I think it'd be good just for us to know where your story's got to now. So who are you? You know, where you living, what you're doing, who is Suzanne Spooner, just as a little
okay. So my name's Suzanne. I live in Coventry. I was brought up in Cardiff, and then I went away to Liverpool to study. And I stayed away in Liverpool and Manchester for quite a long time before feeling the hiraeth and coming home to the motherland.
Yeah.
So I live here in Coventry with my little boy, who's not so little anymore. He's nearly 14. And yeah, that's us. I used to be a social worker, but now I work as a lecturer down at Cardiff Met University, teaching people who are doing a social work degree.
Great. And so you've been brave enough to share your story in light of the fact that it's kind of Mental Health Awareness Week. We wanted to kind of touch on that, not kind of hide away from that, knowing that lots of us struggle with that on different rounds. But do you want to kind of share briefly how that's presented during this kind of lockdown? I think, you know, a number of us have already shared the challenge of lockdown. What's that look like in light of that?
Yeah, it's actually, surprisingly, it's not been too bad. One of the things that I'll be talking about in a bit is depression that I've had for years, and I have it kind of like episodes of it that come and go. But surprisingly, that's not been a problem in this time of lockdown. I've had really good days and I've had really rubbish days, but I don't think that's anything unusual to what the rest of the population is feeling as well. Yeah. And there's been a lot of changes, particularly in my job, that have been kind of forced on me that I don't really like. So I think I've been going through a bit of a process of like grieving for all the things I've lost about the job that I love.
Yeah.
But I'm quite comfortable with that. I think the big thing for me though has been the times that I've struggled has been the times that I felt a lot of pressure. So particularly like pressure from school to do homeschooling and be able to get my son to do any kind of schooling and education, combined with the pressure to be working as well and going out and doing an hour's exercise every day, which, let's face it, I didn't do before lockdown. So why am I going to start doing it now?
Bit of step aerobics, Susie.
Yeah, totally. And at the same time, be doing these incredible creative things and learn a new language and shave my legs. When I felt all those kind of pressures, then it's been pretty grim. And when I've like tried to step back away from that and not listen to those voices telling me what I should be doing from like the media and that, then it's been a lot better, a lot more chilled, and quite nice actually.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I suppose choosing which of those voices to listen to, isn't it? Of where you know, I suppose there's been quite a challenge to start things you wouldn't have done before, and whereas actually that opportunity to kind of leave it and not add another voice, a negative voice into where you feel you're at is quite key, isn't it? And I've got some friends on Facebook that like every single day they'll post on Facebook all the incredible things they've been doing. I've just muted them because who needs to hear that every day when you're not doing it? So. Yeah, apologies if that's any of you guys. Yeah.
It's none of you guys. You don't have to worry. I'm not muting any of you lot. But
these triumphal sorts that take on Everest and shut down. But well, that's great to hear, isn't it? That you're feeling relatively positive in light of knowing your own history. And do you want to? So it's good that you're in a relatively good place now. But do you want to kind of walk us back in where your kind of struggle started or where it opened up? So,
Yeah. So as a child, I was quite quiet, believe it or not.
No
quite
way.
Shy and a really good girl. I was that real geek in school that always was really good. and wanted to be quite a perfectionist and that. I had a really bad stutter as well, which people can't believe. So I could barely speak. So like speaking in public would have been the worst thing ever, because I couldn't even say my name clearly because I had such a bad stutter.
Wow.
So yeah, as a child, I was just quite quiet, quite well behaved, wanting to be a good girl, I think. Yeah. And then when I was a teenager, I think I got a bit more confident in myself. I had a really cool bunch of mates who were really into music. I was living in Cardiff. There was a great clubbing scene and music scene and that. And I was having lots of fun going out and dancing and watching bands and just having a lush time. And when I was 15 and a half, I kind of started clubbing when I was 14. And by the time I was 16, had a local pub where the landlord knew me by name and that. And I remember once him saying to us as we were all there after school one Friday, he was like, "Oh, come on now, play the game. If you're going to come in straight after school, at least take your school ties off."
Straight after school?
Yeah. So that kind of gives a bit of an insight as to what my teenage years were like. I was having a cracking time, it was lush. And but at the same time, putting a lot of pressure on myself to do really well at school and that. And when I was 15 and a half, I was doing my GCSE mocks, and I was walking home from school. And because of the mocks, I was walking home a lot earlier than everybody else. And there was like these lanes that all the school kids would walk through to get onto the main road to walk home. And I was walking through that lane, but there wasn't the crowds of us that there would normally be. It was only me because I'd finished my mock early. And this guy grabbed me and tried to force me into the side of the lane. And it was obvious from where his hands were that his intentions were that he wanted to rape me. And you don't know what you're going to do in that kind of situation until you're actually in it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And given that I was such a quiet, kind of timid lass, what's really surprising is that I just turned around and got this real kind of like fierceness and just screamed at him to off. And he did a runner, and I managed to get away and get to a friend's house, and I was all right. Nothing happened beyond him grabbing me and trying to force me into the side of the lane. But that was quite a turning point for me, for a few reasons really, and things I hadn't even thought about until me and Steve had a bit of a chat yesterday about what I was going to say. It took us nearly an hour to talk about what I was going to say in half an hour. So sorry in advance, folks. And it turned into a bit of a like therapy session, as he was like asking me whether there were any messages I'd received at the time of that attack that had like spoken into my life. And I was like, oh, do you know what? The one thing I really remember really strongly is my mum saying to me, "Well, I told you your skirt was too short." And me feeling really responsible for what had happened. That, you know, it was my fault because I was wearing a short skirt, and I was like, you know, yeah, I was a teenager and I had flipping lash legs and I was showing them off, but then I felt bad about doing that kind of stuff. And I think that did quite a knock-on effect on like my confidence.
Yeah.
And then after that happened, I started having panic attacks.
Yeah.
And I'd never had a panic attack before. And I didn't even, at the time, I wouldn't have even known that's what they were. But whenever I was walking somewhere, I would just find myself feeling really, really scared. And I would be convinced that I could hear footsteps behind me. And I was absolutely convinced that somebody was going to grab me, and just, even though, like, say I was wearing a rucksack and my rucksack was like knocking on my back, and I know that's what the sound was that I was hearing, but at the same time, part of my brain was convinced that it was footsteps, and that it was somebody who was about to attack me. So I would just get really, really scared, and because I'm like really stubborn, I would still carry on. Like I was still going to the pub and walking home alone after the pub. I was still going to nightclubs and, you know, walking through the streets at the early hours of the morning and stuff like that. I was still putting myself in potentially quite dangerous situations, but I was kind of really determined that I wasn't going to be too scared to stop doing them.
Yeah.
But what would happen is that I would be kind of clenching my fists really, really tight. And when I got to where I was going, I'd normally have a little row of cuts on the palm of my hand where my nails are just dug in so tight because I was just so scared and I was like clenching my fists so tight. So that went on, having those kind of panic attacks whenever I was walking somewhere alone, until I was about 19 or 20. And when this attack happened, that was before I started going to church, before I knew anything about God. And I became a Christian a few years later. And it would be less to say that after becoming a Christian, I was never bothered by anything ever again, and it was all wonderful and hunky-dory, but that just wasn't the case. And but what would happen then is that since being a Christian, I would still do all the stuff that I was doing anyway and walk around late at night on my own, even though I was petrified. But I'd be praying all the time while I was doing that, and I'd be like talking to God, but I would still be feeling those exact same feelings of fear and panic, and you know, it was still really, really hard. And then one night, I remember it really vividly. I was walking to a friend's house, and I was feeling those like feelings of panic welling up inside me. And I was praying just like normal. And then I just felt like my right hand just felt really warm and relaxed. And it just felt like somebody was holding my hand. And instead of walking with the clenched hand, I was walking with it like relaxed. But it felt really warm, like somebody was holding it. Yeah. And after that point, I never had a panic attack again. That was something that never bothered me, and that was like really, really amazing. And you won't know this, Steve. Hang on, I'm just going to duck down because I've dropped a piece of paper.
You carry on.
Right, back again. So right, I've got this little box of verses that I keep in my living room, and I just like pick one out at random every now and then, just for a bit of encouragement. And I picked one up today. And the verse that's on it says, "I am the Lord your God, who takes hold of your right hand and says to you, do not fear, I will help you." And that's from Isaiah 41, verse 13. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. That like, you know, I've been talking to Steve about it last night. And then I got that and I was like, oh my word, which hand was it that felt warm? And I was like, it really was. It was my right hand that felt warm. It wasn't my left, it was my right. Like, yeah, that was just really lush to see that today. Yeah, so that was me having kind of panic attacks. And then when I was in university, I had what I now see was my first episode of being depressed, but I didn't recognise it at the time.
Yeah.
I just was really stressed, really low, really flat, didn't want to do anything. But the biggest thing that I noticed was that it felt like my relationship with God had just gone totally. And whereas I'd always kind of chatted to God a lot on quite a regular basis and always felt that kind of relationship, that it was quite a two-way relationship, all of a sudden it didn't feel two-way anymore. It felt like I was talking and nobody was listening. And I was completely and utterly alone, and that he just was completely distant from me, and that was just really hard. That was the thing that was worst to me at the time, is that feeling of complete and utter separation from God that really bothered me. And at the time I was really heavily involved in a Christian union at university, so I had these awesome bunch of people around me who I could be really open and honest with and talk to about stuff. And I talked to some of them about it, and they prayed with me, and it was something that was just still ongoing. And then we had a weekend away at a Christian Union, and they'd invited this bloke to come and talk and do a bit of teaching for us. And I really struggled that weekend because everybody was having a lush, happy, clappy time. And I was just feeling really distant and down and fed up and completely separated from God and from everybody else. And it was just horrible. But also trying to put on a brave face because I was like one of the committee of the CU. So I was supposed to be like one of the ones on top of things. And then just having like a small bunch of people that I'd be honest with and go, oh, this is crap. And, you know, be honest about how tough it was. And then this guy that was talking, I was really like, oh, let me just get through these talks and just get back to my house and crack on with life, do you know what I mean? But I just wanted to get this weekend over and done with. And the guy that was talking was, on a Sunday, he was talking about the cross and how Jesus died for us. And he was talking about how the cross was just the perfect reminder of how much God loves us and the perfect sign of how much God loves us. And there was just a little throwaway remark he made that really struck me. That was that even when our feelings tell us that God doesn't love us, we can always look to the cross and remember that that's the sign of how much God loves us. And that really struck me. They're like, okay, my feelings are, I don't feel loved, I don't feel connected. But the reality is that Jesus still died for me on the cross. And so even though I'm not feeling it, I'm kind of going to try and just hold on to this truth that God loves me. And then the following weekend, I went home to visit my mum and dad on Cardiff, and my godparents came over. And my godparents, despite the fact that they're my godparents, we've never had a conversation about God, ever. They're not Christians, they're just really good friends of my mum and dad's, and a top couple, people I get on with really well. But like, they're not kind of like a Christian example in my life or anything like that. They don't have a faith themselves. And they came over to visit, and my godfather said to me, "Oh, Suzanne, I'm really glad that you're down. I've got something for you here." And he went, "Do you know what? This is the weirdest thing ever." He said, "I don't know where this came from." He said, "I was looking through some of my old stuff and I found this, and I just thought of you and thought I should give it to you." And it was a silver cross from a chain that was engraved with the word remember.
Yeah. Wow.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that like just felt like such an encouragement that even though I still wasn't feeling it, I still wasn't like happy-go-lucky again, I was still feeling like flat and down. But I was like, oh my gosh, I really felt like God had used my godfather, who doesn't even believe in God, to find a random cross that he doesn't know where it came from, put me in mind so that he'd give it to me, and it was engraved with the word remember.
Yeah. So
that cross was like really precious to me, that it was like a really constant reminder that I wore constantly for years and years after that. It's just a constant reminder of that even if I'm not feeling it, God loves me and I'm not alone, even if I might feel alone and disconnected from him.
Yeah. It's
I don't know if I talked too much now.
No, it's great. It's your story, mate. I don't want to, but I think it's great, isn't it? So in those situations, there are tangible experiences of someone who is touching you, speaking to you, affirming truth in you during seasons which are quite hard. I suppose a lot of us kind of, come into a conversation like this would expect that, don't you just want the miraculous to happen? You know, almost, you read the accounts of Jesus, and blindness, sight was given to the blind, and some of these happen straight away. But I suppose in what you say, I suppose the question that comes to mind is that, don't you just wish that he would miraculously take all that away? or is part of your story saying that you see the blessing in some of these, that you wouldn't maybe have experienced some of those things without that? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think having gone through really hard times it's helped my relationship with God to be much stronger, because I've gone through those tough times with him and I've seen him be really faithful and always there with me and never let me down. So I think it's helped me. And also, when I look back, I can see that there's maybe bits of my personality that maybe make me a bit more vulnerable to things like depression, because I've always been really soft-hearted. I've always been the one that would cry at neighbours and stupid stuff like that.
What? Hang on now. You'd cry at neighbours?
Yeah.
What? Like the
well, if
TV...
something sad was happening, yeah.
The TV show?
Not like every episode. Not because it was such a bad TV show. Just if something bad was happening,
that's my experience. That's my experience, Suze. Having to sit there because my sister was watching it. This isn't fair. Sorry, carry on. I just had to pick you up on that.
But I think that part of that is like the fact that I've just got quite a soft heart.
Yeah.
And I think it's a real positive that when I see other people going through tough things, I really feel for them. And actually, I wouldn't want that to be taken away. So if I could be somebody that didn't struggle with depression, but also I wouldn't have that softness and I wouldn't have that kind of compassion and empathy for people, I wouldn't actually want that, because I kind of feel like some of the bits of me that led me to depression are some of the really awesome bits of me that God has created and designed me in such a way that I am the kind of person who's going to care about people and like want to be in tune with how people are feeling and things like that. And I think that's something that's really beautiful.
And just to pick up on that, for that image of you feeling Jesus' hand, he doesn't want you not to be bold in who you are and to enjoy the life, but he wants your boldness to be that he's there and he's present with you. Like, that's quite a fascinating picture, isn't it? It's not that he is leading you away from enjoying and being bold, but he wants you to put that boldness in a right place, knowing that he's there. So that boldness continues. That's that willingness to wear your hair blue and be a different character to the others. That's fine. But he wants you to know his presence and to know his comfort. Yeah. Sorry, that struck me.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to pick up on that? Go on.
I was just thinking that like some of the things that have really helped me, like I'm still on such a journey with this and I still have bouts of depression and I don't know if they'll ever end or whether that'll be something that will go on for the rest of my life. But it has been something that I can see real positives come out of it. And that through going through this, it's helped me to be more compassionate to other people. I've also been on a journey of learning to be kinder to myself. And I think that's something I've always had really high expectations of myself. And I've needed to learn to be a bit kinder to myself. And as well, I used to do like bits of, I did like a bit of a counselling course and things like that. And as part of my work as a social worker, I was really aware of like cognitive behavioural therapy, where like it's all about taking, recognising your unhelpful thought patterns and turning them around into more helpful, more positive thought patterns. I feel like that's not a new idea, because it tells us in the Bible to take captive every thought.
Yeah.
And that's been a process that I've been through, where I felt like there's times when I'm depressed, my thought patterns go really skew-iff and they go really negative, and the thoughts that I'm thinking are really not the truth. Yeah. So I'll think things like, oh, I'm worthless, I'm rubbish. And what I've learned to do is to kind of try and catch hold of those thoughts and replace them with, okay, so what's God's truth about it? And God's truth is you're precious and you're honoured. You're, you know, that he loves me, that he knitted me together in my mother's womb, all those things. And so being able to recognise the lies and replace them with the truth has been something that's been really helpful for me.
Yeah, yeah. And I suppose that comes back to what you were saying earlier, isn't it? Is, you know, embracing his love for you in what Jesus did upon the cross. So this very huge display of, you know, there might be stuff in your past that you've done wrong. There might be stuff that's been done to you. So whether that's guilt on your own part,
there might be stuff in my today that I've done wrong. There definitely is stuff in my today that I've done wrong. Yeah,
definitely. But whether it's guilt of things that you've done wrong, or whether it's shame of what's been done to you, he says, I want to deal with that, and I want to reassure you and encourage you. Okay.
Yeah, and I think we kind of feel like we've got to present like a bit of an image to God. That's such a load of rubbish. We don't have to. Yeah. He knows what we're going through. Yeah. And I think there's something really beautiful about just being able to be really honest with him and say, you know, screaming to him or crying to him and telling him exactly what we're feeling and what we're going through, and not feeling like he's going to reject us for that. Yeah. He's not surprised by it. He's not disappointed in us because of it. He wants to meet us right at that very place. Yeah. And there's an image that is really, really beautiful. There's this Japanese art that's called something like kitsungi or something like that. But it's where they take broken pieces of pottery and they mend it with gold. And it's just absolutely beautiful. Do a Google search and look for it. It's absolutely stunning. The broken pieces are so beautiful, and they're actually stronger because they've been mended with this pure gold. And it just feels like that's such a beautiful picture of what God does with us, that these bits of pottery, they're not worth any less because they've been broken and mended. Actually, they're even more beautiful because they've been broken and mended with something really pure. That's just a lush picture of what I think God does with us. Yeah. And what he's done with me anyway.
That's great. So there is so much of Sue's story. We're just getting a glimpse of it, but we don't want to keep you all night, and we want to try and honour what we've said in terms of how long we're going. Just one thing to close, really. I think you're just touching on it there, Suze, is, you know, for those listening, whether it's been a long journey of struggling with anxiety or depression or mental health, or whether it's just started to raise its ugly head during this season, what would kind of your suggestions or your advice be for those, if you could summarize that quickly?
Quickly. I think one of the things with depression is that it really wants to isolate you. Yeah. And it wants to isolate you from God, and it wants to isolate you from other people as well. And so I think that's the most important thing, is to kind of keep chatting to God and go to him in your like toughest times and just ask him to help you, because I promise you he will, and he will be there with you. He might not make it all go away miraculously, but he will be there with you. You'll have that comforting presence. Yeah. And then as well, try to surround yourself and be in contact with people who are positive and who aren't going to reinforce those lies to you, but who are going to reinforce the truth to you. Yeah. That's where kind of like community comes in, and having people around you that you can just do life with and be honest with and be real with, and know that they're going to love and support you, and and take you to Jesus and help him to help you. Not that they're going to fix all your problems, but that they're just going to walk alongside them with you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Suze. Thank you so much. And appreciate you. Love you like a sister. Appreciate your vulnerability tonight. And it's great that you can share your story with boldness and be able to point, hopefully, others to a better alternative. We want to be sharing stories over the next couple of weeks of different things, of different aspects. We could even hear more of Suze. That there's a vastness of her experiences and stuff. But others that we know, so over the next couple of weeks, we'll be sending different invites out. But we were aware off the back of this that if any of you wanted to start exploring, taking first steps, or like, hopefully you know us enough to know that this isn't about us pushing people onto Jesus. This is about people exploring who Jesus is. But I know Suze, I know others here, Suze was, we were suggesting maybe a WhatsApp group if you wanted to explore that over the next couple of weeks, have some kind of someone that you can bounce thoughts or ideas off. We're more than willing. So if you wanted to do that, stick around, have a chat, and get maybe even Sue's number. That would be great. We will stay on for anyone that wants to ask any questions. But I'm just going to close with this thought, really, just so that other people feel free to go. I was raised by a great mother who struggled all the way through my childhood, struggle with depression, and I saw the strains and the stresses, and it was hard to observe as a child. And yet I know my mum is my greatest investor into my life. She's been, and I suppose I wanted to share this to encourage those of us that struggle and sometimes just say, I'm so worthless and hopeless. And my mum struggled with this. And yet she was the greatest voice and has been such a helpful, those of you that see me in Little Lounge, see me engaging with kids, that's all my mother's investment of showing me what it was to care for other people and care for children. And so don't allow the enemy, don't allow lies to speak and diminish who you are and what you've been made for. Each and every one of you that are on here, he wants to, like with Sue's story, wants to take your hand and lead you into an alternative, to start believing in what he can do in you and what he can release in you. And so we as a church want to be able to encourage that and encourage people to explore that with Jesus. But hey, I'm not going to switch off, but I'm going to say goodnight. For those of you that need to go and have some supper, a hot chocolate before bed, need to get back to work. Thanks, Rach, for your commitment. Then feel free to go. If those of you want to stay around and chat, then feel free to stay on. We'll leave it open. Great to see you guys. Thanks for popping in.
Bye. And if anyone's struggling and wants to talk or wants somebody to chat things through with or pray with, then please reach out. I'm happy to do that, and I know there's other people in Lounge that are happy to do that.
I just need to take my child for an hour or two.
I would love to, Rach, if I could.
Oh, I know.
If I could, I would.
That would help my mental state a lot. Oh.
One day, Rach. Keep going.
Yep. Keep plodding on.
Keep plodding on. Thanks, Suze. Shall I? Is there any chat? Is it? Oh.
This is really awkward now, isn't it? Where we just kind of all stare at each other.
Right. Okay. Katie's giving me some advice here. If you have a question, then why don't you put your hands up and we can go like that. We can.
I need to put the cameras on.
But your obviously if your camera's off, you can't put your hands up. There's only one with the camera off. I think Ree's happy to the minute. If Ree wants to, she can.
Stay unidentified.
Right. But does anyone have any questions or comments or feedback off any of that? We don't want to close, but still, there's no pressure. Feel free to. Some people have left, and we don't have any issues. So, does anyone want to? There's no hands up. Is there any lurking hands? Anyone? Even if it's just say thank you. Love that you have to say
yes,
thank you.
Thank you.
I had goosebumps when you were telling your story.
Goosebumps.
I don't know if I was me. Yeah. Oh, my husband's just said my dinner's done. It's his birthday today, and it's his birthday today, love him, and he's cooked for me.
Ah, Rich!
Like ah.
That's power, Rach.
It's such a diva, Rach.
You came in just now. I'm like, you doing dinner?
What a legend. Good lad.
Yes.
Well done.
Tell him happy birthday off
I'll
us.
applaud him.
I shall.
Jade lifted her hand.
Jade, do you have a question?
I don't have a question, I have a comment. Yeah, just an encouragement, really. Well, Suze, that was just, you've told me that story before. And, well, it was just amazing. Yeah, I know how hard that must have been for you to say all that again. But it was beautiful, do you know what I mean? The outcome is beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, and I do agree that, like, obviously, we're all broken. We've all got stories. But it makes us who we are. It gives us,
definitely.
it gives us the strength. Well, Jesus gives us the strength. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, I tried to do it on my own for such a long time without him. And that leads to depression. So what you just said was amazing. And no doubt it'll help loads of people.
Oh, thanks, mate.
Don't cry now.
No, and just to be an honest voice into that as well, Suze, when you were sharing your experiences as a guy with a grizzly beard, I wanted to be back in that story, and I wanted to protect you, and you know, not just F off, but that inclination to want to defend. And it's hard, isn't it, that sometimes that you know, we were talking about it a bit on Sunday, weren't we, that need for justice and for, you know, Jesus show up and reign on that person, and yet we don't know what he's doing with that person, you know, and just that idea that he was terrified, you know, he ran, you know, there's a scared little boy that is, you know, and I'm not defending that. I don't want to be the only male here I'm not defending that. It's wrong. And as I said, I want to, but that whole idea of Jesus holds your hand, and that's a powerful hand. That's a protective hand. I'm with you, and I was with you during that time. And sometimes I think I look back in my own stories, and part of my mistake was I wasn't willing to see Jesus in that moment or run to him. But yeah, I think. Bye, Rach. Go and have your food.
Bye, Rach. Enjoy your dinner.
Yeah, thank you for that. Great. Oh, Leanne. Which one? Yeah, good hand up, Leanne. High fives.
Unmute her.
Oh, I got to unmute you. Where?
Lay.
I've asked to unmute. You got to unmute yourself, I think, Leanne.
Yeah.
Oh, you're on mute again. Don't you wish, Steve, you had the power to mute me when we were in lounge meetings?
Oh, always. This is a great.
She's still muted.
Sorry, Leanne. I'm asking to unmute. I'm going to leave it now. I think I pressed it. Can you unmute yourself, Leanne?
Yeah.
Yeah. You are free to speak. Crack on.
It's just a comment rather than a question, just to say,
fine.
I think it's absolutely beautiful that Suzanne can use that experience and depression and all of that unpleasant as a drive to be sympathetic. It's beautiful to see someone, the way she said that made her who she is, to sympathize and have empathy for other people. You know, I think that's there's so many people like who have gone through awful things, or who have who can take those experiences and let it ruin them and break them. And I think it's really beautiful to see Suzanne then explain how they have made her able to sympathize with others and use and make her a more comforting person, if that makes sense. It's just lovely.
Oh, thanks, Liam. I think as well that's a real sign of like what God does, like that I'm rubbish with the verses in the Bible. I never know where they are. But there's a verse in the Bible that says, what Satan meant for evil, God uses for good. And I really feel like it's God who turns stuff around, do you know what I mean? And he brings the good stuff out of the horribleness. He kind of, even where things are completely and utterly pure evil, God's still able to bring some good stuff and turn it around and take something awful and make it something beautiful.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah.
Thanks, yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Is Ange got her hand up, or is she just covering her screen?
Looks like she's frozen.
Or is she frozen?
I think, yeah, she's frozen.
Yes, so I think we'll wrap this up now, but it's been so lush to have so many different people join. One of the reasons why I went on a different camera was because I thought, well, let's make it look like there's more people on there just in case someone else joins. But as it turns out, I didn't need to do that. So
Oh, look at that.
I'm sure that we'll want to hear more of Suze's story, because I know there's loads more that you can share with us from your experience. And
Oh,
learning about Jesus, I find really, really helpful listening to other people's experiences.
Tracy,
Oh, Branwen, shut up!
Rihanna!
Oh, you can hear it. You can't. Can you see her though?
No!
I don't know what.
Okay.
Look at it, there's no pepper.
Yeah.
Sorry, I muted you.
What I was trying to say was, I think we're all created to identify with other people's stories, and that's why, like, God is an incredible storyteller. The Bible is one awesome story from start to finish, a really long, in-depth story, but essentially it's a love story. And that's why we thought these like events would be good, like listening to other people's stories, because we can identify with like aspects of our own struggles and our own experiences, and then hear how God has worked through that kind of thing in someone else's life, and then possibly think, well, God could do that for me as well. So yeah, we want to do these like hopefully on a weekly basis, and we'd really love you to join us again and tell other people about it as well, because it doesn't matter where they are. They can be on the other side of the world, and if they're willing to wake up at silly o'clock in the morning, they can join us as well, after the NHS clap, obviously. So we'll let you know when we're doing our next one, and have a lovely evening.
Yeah. Hey, if you know someone here and you want to hear their story, maybe we can get some voting going on. It's a bit of an X factor for you. Vote for the next person. Suze, thank you so much, guys. Hope that's helped you on your evening. Katie's already got a bottle of wine out, so it looks like that's where our evening's going. Have a glass of wine. Suze, thanks so much. Thanks, guys, all for listening in and contributing. Good night.
Bye.
Nice to see you all.
Bye.
Guys.
Simple gospel, I will rejoice in you, Lord. I will rejoice in the simple gospel, and I will rejoice.